What's up? The PoE 2 patch 0.3 reveal was yesterday afternoon, and it is humongous. Honestly, it might be the best patch ever for PoE 2 and PoE 1. I don't really think I'm overselling it here. The addition of asynchronous trade for PoE 2, which is then, as Jonathan and Mark explicitly said, going to be put into PoE 1 as well, is truly a game changer. It's something that people have been begging for ages, and I can't believe we've finally gotten it. I feel like I'm dreaming, but it's real. So anyway, the patch is huge. I'm going to touch on the major additions in the patch and how I think they're going to affect the economy and the basic flow through the campaign and in-game. I think it's all going to be pretty positive stuff, and then I'm going to walk through the 3 build concepts that really jumped out at us from their presentation. So let's get into it, but first be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, join our Discord as well, and say hello to me and Sunset. Alright, starting with the patch overview, they didn't hold the patch notes hostage, as they said. They dropped the patch notes at 7 o'clock, the Q&A was still going, which is cool, but they also just made this really good looking infographic, like very nice for posting on social media. That's even the name, social media infographic. But it also just like really encapsulates everything that's coming in the patch. Act 4. A little surprised that we didn't get the Druid or Act 5, but we're getting the End of Cruel difficulty existing. We're kind of getting, I think, bits and pieces of like a cobbled together version of what they have of Act 5 and 6 so far, and then stuff to make it make sense from the first 3 acts, so it's not going to just feel like doing the same thing again. New areas, new bosses, so, you know, that's pretty good. We're also getting an Abyss League mechanic with looks like 3 mini bosses or minor bosses, and then an actual pinnacle boss, and then also a crafting system, which I think I have some footage of that. Yeah, here we go. All right, here is some footage of using the abyssal crafting system. So just to kind of jump through here, basically you're able to get abyssal items, then you essentially unveil, you know, this is the betrayal unveiling from PoE 1, except when you finish with it, if we skip ahead here, very fun bit of flavor on this. Instead of just putting a mod on, you throw it into a pit. And then also this is where you go to fight the eventual like pinnacle boss of this league mechanic. And so you throw your whole body into the pit, and yeah, it comes back. Now it's got this fancy mod on it. So, like, here we go. We finally have the beginnings of some of the in-game crafting systems that are existing in this this version of PoE 2. Looking pretty good. Also, there were huge rebalances to, like, massive number of skills. Like, the length of ascendancy changes is, you know, this. It's a damn phone book. And then skill changes are significantly longer than that. So I'm definitely not going to go through all of them. Unique item changes also happening as well. There is a lot being changed. Obviously, there's a lot to sink your teeth into. So even though Druid isn't like happening, I was maybe a little disappointed by that. Ultimately, I'm not. I feel like if anything, they've added so many more build opportunities and options that just simply didn't exist prior to this patch. So I'm actually like, I think more hyped. I think the biggest issue I'm having now is like decision paralysis, where I have a lot of good looking options. And that is different from just going, you know, like with last patch, new thing, I'm going to play that. Now I have like 4 or 5 new things that are all competing. And then they're adding sprint. You can dodge roll, and then if you hold down dodge roll, you'll start sprinting. If you get hit, you'll get knocked down. So it's sort of like a way to get in between combat. But as they showed in some of the footage, it seems like you're basically able to disengage from all enemy combat situations. Like if you want to run away, if you feel like you're not going to live through this and you don't want to die, you can just roll away and then run. And it seems like that basically is going to work in all situations. So radical departure from where we were at the start of patch 0.2. Really good. And then obviously the biggest thing is just simply that you're going to be able to trade with other players, and there's going to be new stash tabs for that. You are able to convert premium stash tabs over to using the new stash tabs. Like there's some tool on the website that I think isn't up yet. At least last I checked, it wasn't available. Right. But you know, that should be up fairly soon. You know, sometime in the next week, you'll be able to convert those premium stash tabs that you've bought tons of into trading tabs. And then this has enormous implications for the game's economy. The ability to have like asynchronous trade. All right, here we go. Yeah, here we have some like video of the new trade windows that look pretty good. Basically what this means is that when somebody decides they're done for the league, it means that all of the stuff that they've put into their trade tabs is still like available. It's not removed from the economy. Or even if they're just like, AFK, right? Like plenty of times where I've like gone to get a drink or a sandwich or something, come back and missed a nice trade that I wanted to do, and that's no longer going to be a thing. They talked about this in the Q&A, but they've looked at like a lot of potential griefing cases and removed those, like preemptively taking care of those. So the only real thing is just simply making sure that you don't like undercut yourself, post something super low and not get any hits, or sell it for less than it's worth, or do the opposite, overprice it and not get any hits. And then there is also a bit of a gold cost in buying items, and that's sort of like anti-bot protection, I think, for the most part. And, I think this was just a really, really amazing solution to a problem that definitely has existed for a long time, and it's solved in exactly the way you would want it to be solved. I just didn't think it would happen this quickly and easily. It's still linked up through the website. You can teleport to somebody's hideout and buy stuff, and then you can look at the other stuff in their stash tab and see if you want to buy that too. Looks pretty cool. All right, I think that's pretty much it for the patch overview. Again, and much more really doesn't even do it justice. There is so much happening in this patch. So really there were 3 builds that jumped out at us, and I'm just going to kind of run through them one after another. So the first one that jumped out, this was the first one that they covered redesigning a lot of skills for, is maces, and they specifically were demoing this and making it look pretty good actually with a one-handed mace and a shield, which I still don't think that's the way you're going to want to play it, but that is what they were demoing. And so they showed off like some redesigned skills and also this new skill, Forge Hammer, which is like a hammer you're able to throw out and then call back to your hand. You can also use war cries around it. As you can see here, war cries will make it explode into a bunch of fissures on the ground, and then if you do slams, like rolling slam seems to do 2 strikes around it, it'll make it explode. And so then they have some really good footage here of like doing this on bosses, war crying, forming all those fissures, rolling slam, getting multiple sets of explosions out of it. Pretty cool. Then they also showed off Ancestral Cry, which is a new glory skill that just like creates this enormous explosion of fire everywhere, makes you like create fire every time you walk. As you can see, humongous like volcanoes of flames here, and this really, really spoke to me. Like, I just love how much fire is coming out of this. I really wanted Warrior to be good going into this game's like 0.1 release, and it really didn't seem like it was. It seemed like it was super slow. They do seem to have sped up some of the skills that I like. Rolling Slam and Sunder are both skills that I like conceptually that are just brutally slow. So this is like a Leap Slam Bone Shatter Mace Strike build that I had kind of like thrown together in the intention of maybe playing it at some point in patch 0.2, and then I had just never followed through on it. So this is like a preliminary thing. We obviously don't have the 0.3 PoB yet. We don't have all of the new passive skills that they're going to be adding around the tree. They did show off a handful of them. And so here is one of those passive skills that they showed off. Again, they said that there are something like over 100 new notable passives in the tree, something like 20, 25 around each of the class starting areas. This is just one that they showed off. Fully broken armor applies to fire damage taken, increased effect of fully broken armor. And so I saw this and I thought, like, right now, this character obviously, again, it's not on the 0.3 version of PoB, so you wouldn't play, you might play a Smith of Kitava just to start out, just for the easy resistance capping at the start of the league, and because Smith of Kitava and warriors in general are very strong in the campaign. But I think what you would do is take this into a Warbringer direction, and I think this is kind of looking like the frontrunner build for me. So I think once we have PoB and a little bit more detail on some of these skill gems, I might actually try and throw together like a whole guide on this, But again, the other two are really like, they're looking pretty nice. So we're gonna see exactly which direction I wind up leaning in the end. But the ability to like break armor with all of the damage you deal rather than just physical damage that you then have to like support correctly, and then also imploding impacts, being able to break enemy armor below 0 is crazy strong. They've also merged Warcaller's Bellow and Great Wolf's Howl together, so you have no cooldown on war cries, and your war cries explode nearby corpses all the time. That would work really well with the Forge Hammer too. I don't really like totems. In fact, no, that's not accurate. I hate totems. I've always hated totems, so I don't know that I want to go in an ancestral spirit totem type of direction, but maybe it's really good. They did change the way that block is going to work. You're able to block like everything except for unavoidable boss slams, so that's good. But they've also nerfed the base block or the max block chance by default down to 40%. So I had that pulled up in the patch notes. Oh, just another thing out of the patch notes, just generally they've buffed all skill damage, like base damage on skills, by about 20%. About 5% at level 20, about 20% at level 30. So anywhere from like 5 to 20% on all skills at reasonably high levels. And then they've also reduced mana costs a lot. But yeah, you can see here, player, monster, and minion-based block chance, max block chance rather, is 50% rather than 75. And then if we go to Warbringer, the Turtle Charm notable passive skill, that is this one down here, right here, 25% less block chance, so you can block everything while your shield's not raised. That's now just baseline functionality, that blocking everything when your shield's not raised. So instead, they've made it so that you take 30% damage from blocked hits, which is bad, but your max block chance is now 75 instead of 50. Theoretically, you could combine this with like Svalin and get up into the like mid 80% block chance and then be taking 70% less damage from all those hits. That's pretty good. There's also some buffs that have happened to armor where there'll be new like mods that allow your armor to contribute to elemental damage reduction, which is something I love. More on some other defensive buffs later, but basically they've brought armor and evasion as like archetypes up to the level of energy shield, it looks like, and they've done some small nerfs to energy shield recovery as well. So this is just like sort of what I'm generically thinking. Like I think you would definitely take more Warcry nodes than I have in here. You'd probably take fewer, or you wouldn't take any of the physical nodes. You would take some more like fire nodes, like these over here, Overheating Blow and Fulmination. Like these are definitely things that you would go with to be a bit more fiery. But yeah, ultimately this is just like, I'll put this in the POB, or I'll put this POB in the description so you can play around with it. Obviously this isn't exactly the way I would put the character together. But don't have all the information required to really like math this all out yet. But I think the idea of playing a Fire Warrior seems incredibly fun and incredibly strong at the start of a league. All right, on to the next build that really jumped out at us. Here we have, they're demonstrating the complete inability to play any sort of unarmed builds, which people love. I love Hollow Palm and PoE 1. It's a really fun idea. It's just that deck stacking is usually a pretty weak archetype as far as stackers go. And now they have a new version of Hollow Palm. It allows you to use quarterstaff skills while unarmed. So you can play Ice Strike, you can play Wind Blast is a skill that is getting a pretty significant buff. I think Ice Strike just makes kind of the most sense. It was very strong in the last patch. It was not as strong as Lightning Spear, obviously, with the ability to play that while not even really needing a good weapon, right? You just level up your skill, that'll give you more flat fizz, that you get more attack speed out of getting more evasion rating, and crit chance out of getting more energy shield, right? So you just stack as much evasion and energy shield as you possibly can on this build, get your skill gem level as high as you can, and now you're going to be doing tons of damage without like needing a weapon. And as you can see from the footage here, it looks sick as hell. Like, this looks awesome. The animations look really good. It looks fast and fun and flashy. It's absolutely everything you would want an unarmed monk to be. And so they did make a bunch of changes to the Acolyte of Chayula Ascendancy, which was what I played at the start of patch 0.1. Jumping to the Ice Strike monk that I just kind of slapped together, I still think Evoker, Evonkler makes more sense. You know, you get a lot of extra damage, you get a lot of defensive value, and also like getting built-in spirit is really nice, not having to worry about getting spirit. You're like triple dipping, you're getting like multiple damage scaling stats out of energy shield and evasion out of Hollow Palm, and then you're also getting spirit out of energy shield and evasion on your body armor slot, so like that seems pretty good. And then obviously Sunder My Enemies. This just seems stronger to me than anything that Acolyte of Chayula really has to offer. So like, this is a pretty normal looking Ice Strike build, Ice Strike, Tempest Spell, Charge Staff, all of that stuff. It's funny to have Charge Staff when it's more like Charge Fists, but whatever. Maybe they'll throw in an MTX for that at some point. That would be pretty great to have like a Keystone specific MTX where you charge up your fists big time, give yourself the Hulk hands. I like that idea. One thing that really surprised me is they didn't really nerf Heralds all that much. Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder were super strong. through the last patch, Herald of Ass as well. And the only thing that they've nerfed here is Herald of Thunder is like slightly smaller. I mean, it's not a tiny nerf. It's like 50% smaller, or 30% smaller, whatever. 1.4 down to 1. Not terrible though. There we go. 29% smaller. Right, mathed it out. 29% radius reduction on Herald of Thunder, which was an absolute clearing machine. Really not that bad. And yeah, it's still going to be super strong. And so because of this, I think Hollow Palm Monk seems like one of the most exciting, interesting build concepts going into the next league. So another thing, and I don't really have a great visual for this, but another thing that's being added in the patch that is specifically for like evasion builds and will work very well with Monk is Deflect. It's a new defensive mechanic that gives you a chance to reduce damage taken from hits and from the ailments that those hits inflict by 40%. And this is basically just a better version of spell suppression from PoE 1, and the chance to deflect is also like based off of your evasion rating. Technically, I think it's based off of enemy chance to hit. There's not really a lot of stuff in the patch notes about deflect, but you know, there is definitely like a lot of support for deflect in the tree, and there's like a keystone for it. Glancing blows will pertain to a chance to evade and chance to deflect. So you kind of have like a different version of, not exactly armor because it's only 40% damage reduction, but you have high evade chance and a decent amount of deflect. This kind of gives you the chance to not just get like one banged when you're playing an evasion class and you don't dodge, you know? So I think that these gloves are just like perfectly suited for Hollow Palm, and they're I mean, obviously only suited for Hollow Palm. You're not going to be playing unarmed melee hit builds without Hollow Palm, but like this is perfect, right? This is super good, and I don't even know that they're really going to be that expensive because they're only useful for one build, unlike Hand of Wisdom in Action that was useful for like every attack-based build. This is only useful for one build, so you don't even know how expensive it's going to wind up being. You know, it might be. I guess we'll have to see, right? And so the third build concept that really stood out as being just super awesome is Multi-Elementalist Sorceress. Arc is kind of a like pretty classic beloved skill in PoE 1, and then in PoE 2 they had made it into more of like a finisher skill, something you would trigger rather than hard casting. And they've changed that. They've made Arc just be like a regular normal skill that you could use as a primary skill gem now. But they've also given a lot of incentive to kind of weave back and forth between multiple skills at once by having these infusions that come out of different skills. Like they're doing it with Frost Bomb here. Throw a Frost Bomb, it explodes. Now there's an infusion on the ground that's actually an item on the ground or a thing on the ground you can pick up, and then it gives you a buff on your next. Some of your next elemental skills that will then have different effects. I think they give a lot of examples, like your Spark can consume cold infusions to do like lightning damage and chill. Lots of different stuff like that. Firestorm can consume all 3 elemental infusions and rain down a bunch more bolts. You can get a flaming comet if you have fire infusion. Lots of really cool stuff to play around and explore with. Just seems like a very fun, deep magic system. Looks super cool, as you can see. So, I mean, this really appealed to me. So I had thrown together a Spark Stormweaver quite a while ago. Never actually bothered to get around to leveling it up. This was just like a very basic build concept that I thought, like, yeah, that could be pretty fun to play around with. They did also make some pretty significant changes to Stormweaver in the patch notes, unlike with Invoker or like Smith of Kitava, where I didn't really think there was all that much going on there. I did think this was pretty significant, so I wanted to actually like take a look at this. All the way down here at the bottom, so the Elemental Storm from Tempest Caller and then like Rain Dancer, that's been redesigned quite a bit. So the Elemental Storm previously was a 5-second cooldown. That is this node right here, Tempest Caller, and then the Rain Dancer was just like more cooldown recovery. Now that gives you +1 to your limit for elemental skills, so this means things like Orb of Storms, Solar Orb, Living Bomb, Firestorm. A lot of different skills that have a limit of 1 can now have 2 of them active at once. That's pretty interesting. Not sure if that's going to wind up being great or not, but this is pretty interesting as well. Force of Will being able to grant 20% of damage taken from mana before life and 20% magnitude of Arcane Surge based on you per 10% missing mana. So this makes it so that like when you're low mana, you regen a lot more mana. like more quickly, kind of gives you like burn it down, build it up, burn it down, build it up kind of play style. And then I think the two bigger things are Scouring Winds, which is this one, the exposure is being changed to just like apply to all elements, so that's going to make it way easier to play a multi-elementalist. Similarly, the only elemental curse now is just LE weakness. That's great, right? Super easy to play multi-elementalist. I think it's going to wind up being a really good build concept going forward, but instead of this, it's now when you generate those infusions, those remnants, they appear a second time after you've collected them. The only downside I see about this, it's 2 for the price of 1, right? That's great, but you have to double back after 3 seconds. That's probably not a problem in bossing, and you probably don't need this in mapping, but it does seem like a little annoying to double back 3 seconds later. It's a bit of a while to go running back. On the other side, this 40% of LE damage taken recouped as energy shield that I think nobody was using instead becomes a 50% chance whenever you get a remnant to get a second elemental infusion. I think that seems really impressive. And honestly, in conjunction with each other, the ability to get a 50% chance of an extra remnant or extra infusion whenever you pick up these remnants, and then also getting effectively double remnants, that's an enormous amount of potential extra infusions. So if these bonuses wind up being really powerful and really rewarding, weaving back and forth between like 3 or 4 different skills, that could be really, really awesome. So obviously this isn't in, just like all the rest of these builds. I don't think that the tree that I've constructed here is going to be useful in the patch at all, but if you wanted to like log in and play around for a while, which is exactly like what I'm going to be doing over the next several days in the run up to, the hype building experience, you could drop, you could like play around with something like this in the campaign, just see like how it feels, see if, if it appeals to you. Having done that with versions of all 3 of these, the strength build definitely speaks to me the most right now. But we really just want to see like what the new passive skills that are around the tree, what the skill gem numbers actually wind up looking like once PoB is all updated and stuff. And then we'll go from there once we have a bit more of a definite idea kind of on how things are going to be looking. All right, so that's the Third Edict reveal. It was pretty incredible. Definitely very excited for the coming patch. Excited to get in there and try a lot of different builds and also like experience some of that asynchronous trading. That really seems like it's going to make the game feel so much better, so much easier to get decent gear across a variety of characters. What a time to be alive. All right, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and join the Skipping Sleep Studio Discord so you can say hello to me and Sunset if you haven't already. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us so we can keep making more PoE content, become a channel member as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.